Hi, my name is Kotway and I'm an enterprise account manager in Malaysia, and I focus in helping financial services customers in Malaysia adopt AWS. AWS provides financial services institutions across banking, payments, capital markets, and insurance the secure, resilient, global cloud infrastructure and services they need to differentiate themselves today and adopt the needs of tomorrow. AWS meets the most stringent security requirements while delivering the greatest breadth and depth of services, deepest industry expertise, and the most expansive partner network. Building on AWS empowers organizations to modernize their infrastructure, meet rapidly changing consumer behaviors and expectations, and drive business growth. Through the infrastructure, services, internet experts, and qualified partners offered by AWS, we have earned the trust of over 1 million active monthly customers, including the largest banks, broker-dealers, insurers, and market centers in the world such as Allianz, Barclays, BBVA, Capital One, Guardian, National Bank of Australia, Nasdaq, Santander Open Bank, as well as the industry's newest innovators such as Robinhood, Betterment, Monzo, and Nubank. Today, I have the pleasure and honor to host Puan Noor Farila Abdullah, the Chief Strategy Officer of Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad. During this session, Farila will share about how Bank Islam approached the organization's digitalization path and what are the cultural and tech considerations Farila made for this transformation, and how AWS helped in this journey. But before we start, let's briefly talk about Bank Islam. Established in June 1983, Bank Islam is Malaysia's pioneering Islamic bank, the first to introduce Sharia-compliant banking products in the country, and at the core of Bank Islam lays innovation and the philosophy to fulfill the evolving needs of customers. It is this philosophy which drove the decision to partner with AWS to create the Center of Digital Experience, also known as CDX, the foundation to set up a 100% digital bank built on the cloud, a flexible platform that allows partners such as fintechs, digital marketplaces, and other strategic partners to plug into it directly. Farila, it's really great to have you today.
Thank you, Kotway. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, AWS, for having me here today.
Here comes the first question, Farila. Could you tell us a bit more about yourself and the role that you have been playing at Bank Islam as Chief Strategy Officer since you joined in 2019?
Yep, that's right. I joined Bank Islam in January 2019 with the mandate to plan and implement a transformation program. I have spent a large part of my professional life managing complex projects, including merger integration of banks. In the last decade, I have been fortunate to be in positions to lead transformations of organizations. I have chosen this career path, or perhaps the path chose me, because planning and running projects and programs are full of challenges. And challenges come with opportunities, and opportunities motivate me because I'm a self-proclaimed lifelong student, and I learn best in situations that are fast-paced, deadline-driven, and ever-changing. When I joined Bank Islam, I actually rejoined the banking industry. I was well aware of the inertia of banks and the stamina required to undertake such a program, but the landscape has changed. And no bank can be complacent. The excuses of prior years will no longer hold water. There are many nimble organizations out there just waiting to take the banks to task, especially in how to delight customers. So my work in Bank Islam has been very exciting and fulfilling, where I work with teams to chart our 5-year strategy called Leap 25, implement a holistic transformation program involving culture, operational and digital excellence, which are key enablers of Leap 25, and set up and build out our own digital bank.
Thanks, Farila, for sharing that. You mentioned that banks can no longer be complacent, right? And prior years' excuses no longer hold water. So based on what I've read in your most recent annual report, there is a statement from your CEO, Encik Muazzam, on the need for digital enablement, and the digital future is imminent, right? And through that, the establishment of CDX, which is also known as Center of Digital Experience, is tasked to pursue the aspiration to launch a digital bank proposition that works in synergy with emerging fintech, digital marketplaces that you mentioned, right? Can you share with us what Bank Islam's digital proposition is all about? How does it differ from your current offerings?
Absolutely. CDX is a division we established in 2020 to be dedicated to build out and stand up a digital bank. Amongst its objectives, The digital bank is a greenfield implementation. We set out to do everything differently from the get-go. For example, we set up a team that is cross-functional. We look at new tech stacks. We look at full cloud implementation. Our ideation and identification of products and solutions is driven by our target segments and personas. CDX is also building a platform that we envision will enable new segments to access and connect to our products and services. We know customers are not only going to come from our branches or from our own digital channels. They can come from digital marketplaces, fintechs, and the like. So CDX is an enabler for us to create an ecosystem where we involve various parties to come together on a single platform. Now, creating this dedicated team within the bank makes it easier for us to embark on experimentation, because the risk or any missteps from going down this uncharted territory are insulated from the mothership, from the mother bank. So this is very much rooted by our vision, which is a bank that advances prosperity for all. We want to drive financial inclusion and financial well-being. We want everyone to have access to our Sharia ESG solutions, not limited to our branches, that they can access them through our app, through a fintech's app, through a marketplace, or through any other lifestyle channel.
Thanks, Farila. It's very enlightening for you to capture how Bank Islam sees your own digital value proposition is all about, right? It's indeed very different from what I knew in the past. Culturally, when you describe how ideation and identification of products and solutions are driven by your target segments and personas, in my mind, I'm immediately connecting that to how Amazon's vision is to be Earth's most customer-centric organization. 90% of what we build on the AWS platform is driven by what customers tell us that matters, whereas the remaining 10% is really focused on strategic interpretations of what we think customer wants. An example of something we think that we launched customers were not asking for us for is that we thought that they would really like is AWS Lambda. In 2014, AWS pioneered the event-driven serverless computing space with the launch of AWS Lambda. So AWS Lambda lets customers upload some code through the AWS Management Console, set triggers, and when those triggers are met, it runs that code. And customers don't have to think about servers. They don't have to think about clusters. They don't have to think about auto-scaling or administration of those servers. It's all done for them. Coming back to Bank Islam, Farila, there are many definitions out there in the industry that could mean digital propositions, such as digital banking, right? Which usually refers to the modernization of branch-based processes, making it straight through with minimal human intervention end-to-end, and then delivered through an app or the internet. What is Bank Islam's own definition of digital banking, and why didn't Bank Islam take the approach of just modernizing your existing internet or mobile channels? Isn't that a lot easier than setting up CDX?
Okay, banks don't really have the luxury of focusing on only one aspect of digitalization. All the components have to move in concert and in tandem. So in Bank Islam, we adopt the two-speed digitalization strategy. I mentioned earlier what CDX is driving for Bank Islam. But in parallel, we are committed to the Holistic Transformation Program, which we codenamed Code S+. So CODE stands for Culture, Excellence, Operation Excellence, and Digital Excellence. So when we talk about digital banking or digitalization or finding new business models, most often the challenge to get to value is mindset, and culture, not the technology itself. So therefore, the most important investment is on our people, and that is a key component of Code S+. So the range of initiatives that we undertake for this parallel transformation, can be the pure automation of manual processes using RPA, establishing new capabilities of data science and data analytics that can only be enabled by technology, reducing our tech debt by replacing systems and applications, introducing new digital channels or improving the CX of existing channels, and digital upskilling, bank-wide, where we set targets for overall digital awareness, foundational digital skills, and expert and specialist skills, and we have a target every year.
Thanks, Farila. I'm just very curious, right? During the course of you building your digital bank, what were the challenges that you faced, whether culturally or technologically?
There were many, as you can imagine, Kok Wei, especially in the beginning. So I'll touch on the ones where we can laugh about now, but were actually close to being showstoppers then. One of the biggest challenge was we had to overcome this perception of cloud technology being too risky or a taboo that our regulator is not going to approve. There was a lot of discomfort pertaining to data residency and the confidentiality of customer data may be at risk. Now, this was not addressed overnight, but as an organization, we now know what questions to ask to give us that visibility and transparency. Once we got past that, architecting Bank Islam's first secured environment on the cloud, or we call it the AWS landing zone, was actually also a steep learning curve. And then we are still operating as one bank legally. So we needed to integrate the cloud native systems with some legacy systems. So that took a bit of time. Then there's also this ongoing conversation in the bank on how cost effective and agile is cloud. We knew that with cloud, we will be able to avoid upfront huge capital expenditures on infra. Then speed is key in our ability to respond quickly to what customer needs. So in building the digital bank on cloud, we witnessed how the cloud cost at the beginning of our journey is really just a forecast of what the spend could be like, because it's a pay-as-you-go nature of the consuming cloud computing resources. So it's really about how do we continuously optimize the costs. And then the speed it gave us when we spun up the end-to-end digital bank environment in just a matter of days. So as a customer of AWS, we had to experience it to appreciate it. And I must say, it is a journey that self-informs based on outcomes. Culture-wise, we had to consciously unlearn and relearn. And the team needed to recondition itself to focus on moving forward. When we first started, a lot of the processes, the skill sets were not really ideal, but it was important to just keep moving and celebrate the small wins.
Farila, how did AWS support you in this journey?
Prior to the formation of CDX, my team and I attended several AWS events to learn and get inspiration from AWS customers who have been there, done that. So understanding their lessons learned have been very, very useful for us. Then AWS also doesn't come along as a typical technology vendor. Its obsession for customers is very obvious in my collective interactions. They shared and exposed to us the culture of innovation, like the Amazon leadership principles, working backwards, 2 pizza teams, 2-way doors, without any elements of AWS services. My team and I distilled a lot from there, and you can probably see some influences today, but the team, of course, instilled our own unique culture that I'm very, very proud of. We now leverage our very own innovation mechanisms to transform our customer experiences. The partnership with AWS also allowed us to tap on your ever-growing partner ecosystem. We were introduced to Mambu, our digital core provider, by AWS when we shared that we were looking for a modern, composable, cloud-native core banking solution. Then as we got deeper into this journey, AWS introduced the AWS Solutions Architect Office Hour, a dedicated bi-weekly session with AWS specialists to discuss anything about AWS. We leveraged AWS professional services who worked alongside their SI partner to build our very first core foundation on AWS that implements the necessary security controls for Bank Islam, as well as what's required from our regulator as we work towards making our digital banking stack compliant with local regulations. Finally, the platform with AWS, we can experiment quickly and fail fast without needing to deal with the collateral damage of failed experiments. By being on it also means that we immediately have access to AWS's space of innovation.
I believe Bank Islam will be one of the first, will be considered one of the first among the Malaysian banks to embark on such a journey on the cloud. How did you convince your stakeholders, and how did you bring them with you on this journey? that many in the industry would consider this as an unknown, uncertain, uncharted territory, and some even say extremely risky?
Okay, firstly, we have a board and CEO who are visionary. So the question was not the moonshot, but how do we execute the moonshot? You know, it was not about should we set up a digital bank. It's how do we set up one? So when we decided on the cloud, it was not for the sake of being on the cloud or because we want to be the first to do it. It was very, very purpose driven. And in the early days, we really engaged the industry widely, from consultants to technology providers to neobanks in other geographies. These organizations shared their experience, pitfalls and successes, and we synthesized that with where our starting point was. The exposure to those who have done it and lived to tell the tale was really, really valuable to us. Mind you, not everything was a success story, but we discussed and deliberated transparently. Then we set up a governance framework to provide transparency all the way up to the board, where an existing board committee was mandated to provide oversight. We increased the frequency of sitting of that board to monthly, to make that stage gate concept effective. There are two major outcomes to this. The highest leadership in the bank is kept apprised of our progress at every stage, so course corrections can be invoked timely. And it also pushes our team to condition ourselves to deliver value in small batches, so we can visualize. And that is actually a virtuous cycle where it increases morale too when the team sees the results frequently. Then last but not least, I think what differentiated our approach is that we really planned up front that whenever there are best practices that are proven in CDX, we should scale them bank-wide. So when I spoke about this two-speed digitalisation strategy earlier, the CDX speedboat is not meant to sail into the sunset, never to be seen again. CDX deliverable is not just the digital bank. It is to learn and prove new business models that isolates the risk of doing so from the mothership. And once proven, these new business models are to be adopted to benefit the entire bank.
Through what you have shared, right, are you then able to also share with us what are the lessons that you could share with our customers here, our audience here who are listening, in this 1.5 years, 1.5 years journey with AWS?
Okay, cloud is a journey, not a destination. And you need to invest in educating everyone in the organization, not just the teams who are directly involved. Secondly is find partners who have similar values and aspirations as your organization. The professional mutual trust has to go beyond the technical scope. The relationship required when embarking on transformative projects such as this goes beyond client-vendor. It is a strategic partnership where our expectation from our strategic partner is about thought leadership, guidance, and assurance. The technology provider needs to acknowledge this and play its role as the strategic partner and a thought leader rather than a waiter taking orders. And you need to establish a single-threaded leadership who is fully accountable and empowered to take this on. And you need to ensure the board and the leadership of your organization has visibility of the learning journey that your team is on. Most times, what may seem as a setback is actually a progress, because there is validated learning that will make subsequent iterations better. And sometimes the failures is exactly what needs to be uncovered to ensure we address the root cause. And you need to have these conversations with the board consistently.
Being your account manager, I'm really curious to understand from you directly on how AWS can support Bank Islam in the coming years, beyond what we have collaborated already very well at CDX.
Bank Islam's vision is to be the bank that advances prosperity for all. We are purpose-driven, and our bottom line are the three Ps: people, planet, and profit. We are, without a doubt, a bank that offers Sharia-compliant financial solutions. And being Sharia-compliant in itself means we provide financial solutions that are anchored in justice and risk-sharing. But we go beyond that compliance towards ESG, where we truly embody that sustainable prosperity, where what we do today must be value accretive to future generations. We look into community empowerment because we know we will do well only when our communities do well. And then, of course, promoting the real economy. That is the economy that produces goods and services. And of course, customer centricity. We cannot achieve these without a values-based culture and without digitalization. So AWS is the key enabler of our digitalization. What I hope is that as partners, both our organizations continue to push each other, to push the envelope in innovation, to serve the purpose I mentioned just now. Not just for the sake of new technology, but we want our Sharia ESG financial solutions to be ubiquitous. And with AWS global footprint and global partners, we hope to find innovative new solutions and best practices among them. Then we want AWS to continuously invest on security, that you never take your eyes off this, and that there is deliberate and structured knowledge sharing, training, and education to us, your client. We want to have access to a large talent pool in the market where the skill sets of AWS is many. So I hope AWS pays attention to the training, education, and certification, not only at industry level, but also at higher education and vocational levels. And then as we start to engage our new target segment of customers via our digital bank channels, we are expecting an influx of transactions and behavioral data. For this reason, I look forward to AWS to bring in expertise on how we can leverage on AWS data, analytics, AI, or ML services in helping us drive deeper insights to accelerate our decision making, to continuously engage and improve the digital experience of our customers.
Thank you, Farida. Thank you very much. That was indeed my last and final question, and we are at the end of our session for today. We hear you and where you want us to be constantly keeping up with the pace of Bank Islam and constantly pushing the envelope. I really like that, and never let our eyes off security, right? And I think that's very key for financial services, not only Bank Islam, for all customers in Malaysia, right? Bringing in innovation to Bank Islam and ensure that there's sustainable path in the market supply of talents with AWS skill sets and your ability to also tap on this pool of talents to drive your innovation forward. I thank you for your time today, Farida, and we look forward to driving more impact for Bank Islam as well as the financial services industry as a whole, or whether locally or regionally. So it's clear that financial services enterprises are beginning to modernize their businesses in various ways. As you have heard from Farida on how Bank Islam is charging ahead with its digital proposition, they leveraged AWS and our partner ecosystem to introduce a whole new digital customer experience enabled by a cloud-native core banking solution that runs on AWS. At the same time, meeting strict regulatory requirements here in Malaysia. To the AWS ASEAN Summit audiences out there who are watching, whether you are an employer or an individual looking to understand how you can acquire AWS cloud skills, we have AWS Skills Builder, where you get access to 500 plus free digital courses and learning plans. There are resources with a variety of skills levels and 16 plus languages to meet your learning needs. If you're looking to get certified, check out AWS certifications and earn yourself an industry-recognized credential. Through AWS certifications, you can earn foundational, associate, professional, and specialty certifications. To get started, all you need is to scan the QR code on the slide. Lastly, we thank you for attending the AWS Summit Online ASEAN 2022, and we appreciate the time that you spent. Kindly help complete the session survey to help us improve your summit experience in the future. Thank you.